Alright, welcome back to another Dolphin Computer Service video. I'm going to be showing you how to take apart a Mac Mini from 2011. This is the model A1347. This is a Mac Mini from 2011. This is the server model. This one has the i7 processor with the 2340QM. Don't remember the details. It currently has 16 gigs of RAM, two SSDs, a 512 and a 128 gigabyte. This one's been modified a little bit because it originally was 8 gigabytes, but these are configurable up to 16 gigabytes. The difference between a regular Mac Mini and a Mac Mini server is the deletion of the CD drive, and it's just a solid piece of aluminum. And instead of having a CD drive and a hard drive, you just have two hard drives. These take 2.5-inch drives. As you see, this one was modified by me. Like every Mac owner, you have to put a fancy sticker on it. So you have the light here, which tells you that it's on. This is an IR receiver, so you can use it as a remote. Not much on the sides, either side. The back, you have your power button, your input for your AC voltage, your Ethernet, Firewire 800, HDMI, a Thunderbolt 1 port or a display port, a mini display port depending on how you're using it. You have 4 USB 2.0s. You have an SD card reader, your line in, your headphone jack, and your heat sink exhaust fan for your exhaust. So to take it apart, it's actually not that hard here. First of all, we have our tools here. This is a fancy set. You don't need something this fancy. iFixit will do you just fine. When I worked as an aviation mechanic, I've had it there, so I choose to have these. Also, the benefit of these is these have a lifetime warranty, while the tools at iFixit are very good. I don't believe they offer a lifetime warranty, so when something breaks, I can replace it for free. Very important, this little project mat from iFixit. You don't have to get one. This one's magnetic, but it's really cool. Being organized is definitely one of the most important things that you need to do, because there's a lot of screws here, a lot of different types of screws. So by keeping yourself organized and where they go, you can put it back together the same way you took it apart. Taking photos is also very good recommendation of where everything went. And another thing you could do is iFixit has plenty of guides, or you could just look up a guide from your favorite website. Having that on hand is always good. In fact, I always have them on hand when I do a repair. I have them on my tablet. You kind of can't see it. It's off to the side here. But that's staying organized is definitely number one. So to get inside, you flip it over to its back side. Mac Mini embossed over here, this cover plate here. You put your two thumbs here and you rotate it counterclockwise. So you hear a click and this lines up. Put your finger here, it'll lift up. You can get your other finger and you can get it out the way. So let's see what we have here really quick. We have our airport card, which is the Wi-Fi. This is a little mesh here. This is where our RAM sticks are, and this is our fan. This is where the power supply is, and this is a duct for the air to come in. So first of all, what we're going to do is touch something metal. Make sure we are completely grounded. Don't accidentally electrocute ourselves or the machine. We'll take out the RAM here real quick. The main goal of today is to get the hard drive out, because this hard drive is bad. Well, one of them is. The other one is working just fine. The main one, which is the one this is my former editing machine. I now use a iPad Pro for that, and eventually I will have a new MacBook Pro. So now that the RAM is out, we can start to see the motherboard here really quick. We're going to take off these studs to make life easy. We're going to get a hex head. This one in particular is a 2.0 from Vera. I'm sorry, didn't mean to piss off no Germans here. Another good thing that I forgot to mention is getting a light. So light is very important. You need to have a lot of light to see what you're doing. And I will make a separate video on the lights that I use, because I am perpetually blind without light, and light is important. So now with those out the way, I'm going to pull out my special iFixit screwdriver here with all my separate bits. And I'm going to take off these two here. These are, I believe, this one is a T7 from Torx. So if you don't have this on hand, you could use a very small flathead screwdriver. I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time, but it'll get you out of a pinch. Say you forgot it at home, you can get it off really quick without worrying. These are captive, so you don't have to worry about losing them, if I remember correctly. This one's always kind of a pain. Oh, well, they're not captive. I thought they were. So let's put these off to the side. So there's some cables here that you have to be a little bit careful about. Let me take this off here really quick. It's been a while since I've been inside this machine, so bear with me a little bit. There you go. So we're gonna put this off to the side here. Another thing you could do is, if you're really careful enough for parts like these, you can put the screws back in it so you know exactly where they go. And if you notice, the rubber is supposed to act like a grommet, which is supposed to help keep the screws captive and also helps reduce vibration a little bit, because as you see, this machine is very compact. So any little fan movement or vibration will start to rattle, and we don't want that. So another thing you have to keep in mind here is that since this machine is so compact, dust tends to accumulate really easily on it. So keeping this machine clean is paramount. So this one, the thermal paste was done not too long ago, but again, even with that, it still screams quite a bit. So I want to change my tip here to get these fan screws out. This one in particular is a T6 from Torx. This is another one where if you have a really small flathead, you can get out of it just in an emergency. Again, I wouldn't do it all the time, but you know, if you need to get out really quick, this will do it for you. A flathead will suffice. And you see one of them's trying to escape from me again. So let's take all of these out really quick, because the last thing you want is one of these shooting up on you. So here's another thing that's important. This one is long and the other two are short. So you never want to long screw the short hole, because you could actually, I've seen people do it where they'll pierce through the case and you'll see a little bump. Or you could do even more damage and accidentally go through the board and damage the board permanently. This one is definitely captive, so you don't have to worry about not getting it in the right hole. That's what she said. But, you know, always keep in mind where each screw goes, because they actually go somewhere. So this is our fan here. We can just get underneath it really quick and lift it off, and our fan is out of the way. This is our heat sink here. Our processor is, believe it or not, over here in the corner. And that's going to be our next victim here to take apart. Is this the same screw? Yes, it is. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that these aren't on very tight. So you don't have to, you know, really force them to, you know, get them in. If you're having to turn really hard to get them in, then something isn't right. So this is a cover, more like an air dam, that helps direct the air over these pipes. Believe it or not, CPU and the GPU is right underneath here. So the drive is always finicky, and I remember why I hate doing this. So now we're going to start taking these screws out, some on the motherboard. Again, this is a long screw hole, so you got to keep that in mind. I believe this is another long screw one, if I remember correctly. No, that is a standoff. So the standoff is this one. Oh, wrong one. I know I have the guide, but I've done this so many times that I'm not really looking at it, which is somewhat of a problem when you think about it, but when you do it for long enough, you learn how to do it on your own without having to constantly look at a guide. So these CPU ones do have a spring on them, and that's to keep them loaded, so they're constantly touching. There it is. So what I normally do is I grab by here and I push just enough to get the motherboard out. So here, this faceplate that's black stays on, or you could take it off if you like. I normally keep it on because it's one less thing I have to remember, but it's just enough for you to get in here and disconnect the drives, because these ribbon cables are kind of fragile. So this is the 128. This is the one that has the original OS that came on it. We'll put that off to the side here. And in here, if I have enough space still, this one is always kind of tricky because this one is actually in a caddy that I have to. And then now here, I recommend you taking the power supply out because that will let you come out just a little more. Disconnect this cable here. And now the motherboard is free. So now with this free, you can get to all of this fun bracketry which holds in that one hard drive. So here, I'm gonna put it off to the side here really quick. Oh, something came loose. I haven't touched this in forever. So this is why this is important. So this is actually a clip that goes onto the power supply that I'm going to attempt to put it on now. Even though I have to take the power supply off anyway. But there it is, because this power supply turns, and this is just the lock. So this one, like I said, I picked it up already disassembled, and I kind of just, cobbled it back together really quick because I needed a computer. So this is what the motherboard looks like. So yeah, I'm going to continue taking this off. The reason why I took this one off was because I honestly forgot that I didn't have to take it off. But this is this is the BIOS quote unquote battery. When you take these apart, especially one that you don't have the history on, I recommend you replacing that. They're cheap. You could actually go to like a CVS and buy one. In fact, I'll be doing that now because even though this computer can't do much of video editing anymore, I still have a use for it. So I will be keeping this up to date. So under here is another chip. I have no idea what it's for. I've never really looked into it. I'm pretty sure someone in the comment section can scream at me for telling me that I don't know what I'm doing and that chip is for something important, which I'm pretty sure it is. But this one, I'm going to actually redo the thermal paste on everything here, which I have. So I'm going to take it off and clean it up. I believe this one has thermal paste on it. Yes, it does. So this is it's a chip. I'll have to look it up, but it's a chip. So one thing we're going to do is to clean up thermal paste, we're going to get a Q-tip and we're going to get some alcohol, which I will get right now in a minute, but I want to continue showing the board. So this is the back side. This is where that black round faceplate was. So really nothing much here. We have our antenna cable. This is, I believe, is for the power cable, correction. Runs all through here, and it goes to the other side of the board. So, again, this is that faceplate. It does come off if you want it to. I recommend you leave it on because there's really no need to take it off. So this is your speaker. This, I believe, is your Bluetooth, if I remember correctly. And here's one of the Bluetooth wires that it goes through underneath the speaker. And it goes all the way to out here. So this is actually the Bluetooth speaker. I'm sorry. This one is the power button, this small one right here. So we have our RAM slots over here. We're going to continue taking off this bad boy. put everything back together perfectly. I'm missing a screw somewhere. Yes, it's this one. So these cables are kind of finicky, so you have to be careful when you pull them out, but that's how they come out. So I'm gonna put this one back where it belonged, and this one as well, so I know exactly where they go. Cooperate with me. There you go. Now we'll put it off to the side. So that's the speaker. The speaker is magnetized, so if you accidentally put your screwdriver near it, it will try and get on the screwdriver. I'm going to leave the Bluetooth in place because I don't have a need to take it off right now, and it's working just fine. So these Bluetooth modules are replaceable if you're someone that likes to mod their Mac Mini. I believe you can replace these with another one from a later series, from a 2012, and then you can get a AirDrop, which is very useful. I use AirDrop quite often. So we'll be continuing our disassembly process here. It looks daunting, but it's really not. So if you're someone looking to get into computer repair and you see something like this and you get a little scared, just take your time. You have plenty of it. And if you're like me that charges by the hour, use all of the time that you've allotted to your customer. Because your customer wants a good job done. Most of the time they're willing to pay for it. So there's always that one customer that likes to complain and be a Karen, but we don't talk about those people here. We only think happy thoughts. And we're going to turn this Mac Mini into a happy Mac Mini. Because Mac Minis are good. Mac Minis are one of my favorite computers. I like Mac Minis. So now, if I remember correctly, that should be all of it. It's been a while since I've opened one up. And yes, I am correct. So this is your CPU. This is your GPU. And this looks like it's been through quite a bit of hell. Because it has. I mean, it's edited for quite a while. In fact, you see it's getting a little warm over here, this coloration. So we will put this off to the side. So the copper here, that's what these are. They're just painted black, and the fins are aluminum. So the copper helps direct the heat away from the CPU, and the fan blows it over. And the fan blows it over these heat sinks. Imagine the radiator for your car, except it's all air cooled. That's basically what it is. So now, if you give me a moment, I'll show you exactly. In fact, before I do that, I'm going to put this to the side once more. I'm going to show you how to take out the hard drive. So the hard drive, you can cheat a little bit, which is instead of having to remove the power supply, I believe you can do it with the power supply still in place. So you take these screws out. This is another reason why I say you need a lot of light, because it's dark in here. You have a lot of shadows that prevent you from seeing. I believe it's just these two screws, actually. Or not. Maybe you can't cheat on this one. No, you can't, because it's tied. So you get your tweezers here, or if you want, you can cheat a little bit, like I did, and do that. You're supposed to use tweezers, but I've learned a little bit of tricks. You got to turn it, and then you should be able to pull it straight out without destroying the cable. So now with the power supply out, this is what it looks like. This is what powers the whole Mac Mini. Should be able to pull this one out. Yes. And there is my 512 SSD. It's held in by 4 screws here, 2 on each side. And I'm going to actually take this out because this drive is bad, believe it or not. So here, I believe this is it. I'm going to keep these right here because I want to put them back in with the hard drive once I'm done. Helps if I use the right screw as well. And have the right tip. Always use the right tip. That is also what she said. Release my child. There you go. Trying not to lose you. There you go. Now for the last one. So here, this is your bracket. It does have a connector on it that you do have to be wary of because, believe it or not, this is, I believe, where your power button supply is put here. No, I lied to you. I have no idea what this is. There was a reason I totally forgot what it was, but leave it on there. Don't take it off. It's important. So here, this little bracket here. So this is the one that's giving me problems. Got to keep that. So I might just keep the 128 and then just leave it as 1. Or, depending on how I feel, I might put something else in it. But right now, again, I'm going to use it for something. I just don't know what yet. I might put it back to its original state as a Minecraft server. But if you bear with me, we will now clean up the thermal paste. And we will start putting everything back together again. So just give me 1 minute to get my stuff. All right. We got everything now. So now we're going to make this Mac Mini a happy Mac Mini. Got our Q-tip here. I'm going to start over here. I'm going to wet our Q-tip with some isopropyl. 70 is what I call the minimum here. 70%. If you're using it to kill germs, they say anything higher than 70 is actually not as effective. Because they say, and don't quote me here, but this is what, according, I believe what the CDC says. Because according to the CDC is, if you use higher than 70, it evaporates too fast. And it won't actually kill the germs. Or it takes a lot longer to kill the germs. Well, I'm not killing germs, so I'm more than happy with 91%, which is what I have here. Anyway, it helps me that it evaporates faster, so I'm not waiting here so long for it to clean up and dry off. Another thing you could use is Windex. Windex also works, believe it or not, as a cleaner of thermal paste. Windex does contain some alcohol. Really what you want is anything that has alcohol, to be honest. Try and get some of the gunk off. You want it really clean, so when the new stuff goes on, it has something to actually bond to. Because all the thermal paste does is help transfer the heat between the CPU to the heatsink. We actually have one more to clean up. I almost forgot. See, this is why it's important to have a mat to show you where everything is. So that way you know if you miss something. Alcohol is also really cheap. Get them for $1 or $2. Don't have to go to CVS. Dollar store will work. There you go. I really need to look up what that chip actually does. Well, like I said, I'm pretty sure someone in the comment section will scream at me for it. So now here we have to be a little careful, because I don't know if you can see, but there's teeny tiny itty bitty witty little resistors and capacitors. And see, that stuff needs to be on there in order for this to work. So if you knock them off, you will have a dead CPU. And you will not have a very happy customer if you do that. Hey, look, it's reflective. You can see yourself. There you go. See, I'd be in a lot better position if my Q-tip budget wasn't so high. I just like using a lot of Q-tips. I hate using dirty things over and over. I'd probably be a millionaire if my Q-tip budget wasn't so high. But hey, I am what I am. Dust bunny leave. No. Come back. Get off my board. I'm trying to clean you. Thank you. So I've actually heard that some people use anti-seize as well. That sounds very... While I imagine it worked, because anti-seize does almost look identical to this when you think about it. If those of you have worked with anti-seize, anti-seize gets everywhere, and so does thermal paste. Now I think about it, but I don't know. I've been actually wanting to experiment with it on my old Core 2 quad machine over here that I don't care about anymore, that I've had for so long that I'm dying to get rid of it, but I don't have the heart to throw it away. I also don't want to throw it away because it's still technically a working machine. So now that our GPU, I think that's the GPU, is all clean, we'll go to our CPU. So if you realize why this is all shiny, is because it's polished to the point where it's shiny, and the reason why it's shiny is because it helps the heat transfer from the die to the heatsink. And even though that's shiny to the point where it's polished to the point where it's shiny, believe it or not, if you put it under a microscope, there's still a bunch of teeny little imperfections in it, which is what the thermal paste helps fill. Which is why you don't want to put too much, because if you put too much, then you're going to actually create a distance between the heatsink and the CPU, or the die that you're trying to cool, and cause it to overheat. So you have to put a very small amount. That's R2-D2. He's worse than a child. I don't know why I got him. I was pre-pressured into my best friend. But I also love Tamagotchis. I'm a kid at heart. All right, now that everything's clean and dry. See how much easier it is when everything dries up so quickly? You're not here waiting for so long on things to clean up. In fact, let me clean up this here really quick. I don't know if this is discoloration. Maybe I can help make it look nice. So what I'm doing here is just basic maintenance. When you take your computer to me for a repair, or you have me go to your business and take care of all your computers, this is what I do. I take care of everything. Make sure everything is nice and clean. You're supposed to do this every few years, but if you call me every, year, tell me to take care of everything, I just do this every year. It's better that way for all of us. What's this yellow? This yellow means something to someone. I just don't know who that someone is. At some point in time, it made sense. Just here cleaning up little spots that I see that look kind of weird. This computer has lived indoors all its life, from what I understand, so... Oh, I forgot this one. How clumsy of me. In fact, this one's still wet. The others were kind of dry, which is probably why it started screaming when you did anything. No, this thermal paste isn't that old on this one. It's less than 5 years, that's for sure. There you go. So this battery I know is good, so I'm actually going to leave it because this is not going to be something I use all the time. It'll always be plugged in, so it's mainly for the clock is what it's for. Alright, so here's the thermal paste. You don't have to get anything too complicated. Believe it or not, Best Buy makes a really good one. These do have a kind of a lifespan, so you don't want to have it sit there for too long. And you don't want to put too much. Just a little dab is more than enough, especially for something this small. This one's being a little pain, but like that's for something like that, that's more than enough. I spread it out. Usually I just put a little pea size. Something like that, that's more than enough. This one does have a marking on where its orientation is supposed to be, so I will return it the same way I found it. Where are my tools? That's what these two are going here for. Get the right tip on it. Again, the right tip always matters. And I got the wrong one, didn't I? Violating my own rules. There you go. There. Love looking at these boards. It's like looking at like a electronic metropolis. Except this one's kind of sparse. Usually these, especially the newer ones, are a lot more compact. As we return here, we will again, this one obviously requires a little more. So then now, just line it up. This one has to go inside first with that air dam. And when you press it, it'll just fill in the gaps. Then you plug this back, put it to the side, and now we will slowly start reassembling this. So with these, you don't want to put them all the way down. Just want to get a couple threads in. And you want to put them diagonally when you put them in. So that way you can evenly spread all the paste. And you can evenly put load on all the dies, because if you do it wrong, you could actually damage it. So I normally do a star pattern. So the last one I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. And since this is a Mac Mini, if you ever forget, you could actually turn around and make sure that none of them are sticking too far out. As you see here, none of them are. So we're good. We are more than good. In fact, they're all the same thread length outside, which is how it should be. Now we're going to put our speaker back on. These connectors are always kind of finicky, but they're not too hard once you get to them. They're like little Legos. They go in, and you can hear them and feel them with your finger. Speakers on. Time to pull out the case. So before we pull out the case, actually, I'm gonna put this aside. I found this old hard drive, 500 gigabyte Seagate. I might just use it because why not? I hate having it as I drop all my tools. I hate having things that are available as they keep falling again. You know, I hate having things that are available and not available. So you have to remember where this orientation is. I know it goes upside down because I just remember. At least I think I remember. But you have to keep the orientation in mind. So you plug it in. There you go. I know it goes this way. Correction, it goes that way. And it sits like that. So, you know, me that's done this for a while, I know how to do it, but, you know, that's why I say taking photos is important. It helps you put things back together. So here we go. So the way I do these is I get the right tip. As my watch screams at me. In fact, R2-D2 was screaming at me earlier. Such a child. You can't pinch these, because if you pinch them, then you got to get a new one. Here you go. Having a magnetic one is always good. You get the first one started just to hold you in, because once the first one started, everything else will just fall into place. But there's my 500 gigabyte hard drive. So now we will get the case. We will slide this bad boy in. Make sure it's empty. You don't want anything metal that's rattling in there, especially one that moves a lot. There you go. This one had this screw. That's what these screws are. These are the small ones. Yes, these are the small ones. So this one you want to hold off. See here, perfect. You want to hold off on this one until you put the power supply in, because this power supply is important. Checking it over and making sure nothing just looks obviously wrong. While you're here, you like to visually inspect everything. It's always a good idea. Okay, now that it is in, just gotta rotate it here really quick. This is the finickiest part. That's a word that I cannot pronounce. I will one day learn English. So here you go. Put the screw in. And then there's that little bracket here that you gotta slide in, and that prevents it from rotating. Ideally you use tweezers, but my fingers are small enough just to get in there. Just again making sure everything, you want to check while you're here, because everything is out in front of you. So now we get the main board, or as Apple calls it, the logic board, and you slide it on in. It only goes in one way, so you don't have to worry about forgetting which way it goes. Just long enough, and also not long enough, that's what she said, to plug it in. There you go. We have now to plug in. There you go, plugged in. Gonna plug in our second hard drive. This is actually hard drive number 2. Hard drive number 2, they made it the hardest to get in and out. Made sense to somebody at some time, but this is also very compact, so you can't really fault them. They have quite a bit of technology in something in space so small. Okay, that's hard drive number 2 in. I'm gonna get in hard drive number 1 to my 128. I believe there's an actual bracket for this that this one didn't come with, but nonetheless it works just fine. So now we're gonna put the fan on. Again, the long screw goes in the long hole. So that duct is also important because that helps direct the air. Without it, things will get a little toasty, more than they already do in here. This is a long. So now this is a fun one, this little antenna. What I like to do here with the antenna is to use the screwdriver, kind of guide it into place. Tuck it neatly out of the way. And then these 2 holes for the hard drive actually go and screw in. And that's what keeps the hard drive still. Procedure over here. There you go. Now we got these last few screws here. Use this. These are important. These are the locks that hold the cover on. They made these not magnetic. This fan spins just fine. Everything is in place. Thing looks good, and now we're just gonna put the RAM back in, and we're pretty much done here. You can close it up finally here. You just line up the two holes, two dots, and you twist the lock, and there it is. Then you would plug it back in, make sure it works here, and when you press the power button, there it is. Shine and everything. Everything works. And it's kind of hard to see, but there is a light here that turns on. So that completes this basic maintenance and upgrade, technically, or replacement with the hard drive. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you learned something.